We're back with Brandon Mitchell. Now, you've told us about why you decided to go and help with the resistance against the Russians, with the invasion of Ukraine. You've told us about your trip into the unknown and your training, and then finally being sent on your first mission and what that was all about, what it was like. And you've also told us about how you found that with your online presence, you were able to mobilize a sort of widespread army of online helpers all around Europe and beyond, around the world. But despite all this, it seems that you did find yourself a bit of a loose end. What happened then?
Well, I'm a member of Hospitallers Medical Battalion.
Right.
Our sole purpose is to support Army Medical. I worked for 1st Armoured Brigade. I'd stayed there and worked there, and there was no work anymore there. But my commanding officer's policy was, well, if their commander's happy and you're happy, that's where you should be.
Right.
Very pragmatic. I felt very guilty. I thought I'd go to Donbass because I didn't know much in the news, but I knew that there was a war raging in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk in the summer. And Ukraine was in Severodonetsk having this heroic resistance, like Mariupol. What am I doing? I went with an American paramedic who was a hospitaller, who said, well, I'd like to go there too. And the National Guard of Ukraine, which is a military, quite a large military entity, they said they'd be willing to take us if we wanted to come. But it was a little bit messy right now in Lysychansk, and they were surrounded, and you could come maybe to Kramatorsk, and if it calms down for a couple of days, you could come join us. But what happened, and I felt like we missed the war, Ukraine decided to pull out of Lysychansk completely and abandon it. I don't think the Russians were ready for this, and what resulted, there was a pause in the war almost in that region of Donbass for maybe 2 weeks. There was like hardly a shot fired. The Ukrainians ran faster than the Russians could advance, and we showed up in Kramatorsk ready to work for the National Guard. We had my truck ready to go as a Kazovac vehicle, casualty evacuation.
Yep.
And these National Guard boys had pulled all the way back to Kramatorsk, and they're living in a basement. They're tired. They just want to sleep all day, and I remember that all the time. We were ready to work, and they're sleeping like 12 hours a day, if not more. Get up, eat some food, and back to sleep. They'd been in the real war. Someone was giving them a break, they were going to take it. This completely blew my mind. There was this guy with a Jimny, like a Suzuki 4-wheel drive.
All right.
Yeah, and he had long curly hair all over the place. His name was Dmitry, and he showed up at the National Guard place, but he was quite clearly a civilian. And he had a shotgun, and he had 2 kitty cats crawling all over him. He was driving, and me and Casey, the American, looked like, who is this guy? He was a volunteer. He was a civilian who volunteered with the army, and I didn't know this at the time. Donbass, because there's an old war that's been going on a long time. There's a lot of volunteers that help with humanitarian that have been there a long, long time. There's a lot of volunteers. They're not part of an organization. They may be like one man with a van sort of thing, and they volunteer with an army brigade or friends in this unit or that. If they need anything, they need supplies, if they need transport to different places, because sometimes the army's short of vehicles, so these trusted volunteers will bring them to another front or another position. Dmitry was one of these guys.
Getting a fair and accurate impression of what's going on in Ukraine right now is so difficult. And it doesn't help that we so often get caught up in a media bubble. Well, there is a website called Ground News that creates no reports of its own, but instead collates reports from thousands of other news sources from around the world and puts them all in one place for you to compare. For instance, this article here is about the attack on the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And if we look just at the left-wing press, we see Russia accuses, Russia accuses, Russia accuses. Whereas if we look at the right-wing press, it's still some Russia accuses, but also, no, one headline there suggesting that the Western allies just were helping, no accuses about it. And we can also have a look at who owns these various news sources and how factually accurate they are. And we can come to a more rounded, perhaps, perspective, understanding of the situation. And if you want to become a more rounded consumer of news, you can click the link in the description or make use of the QR code appearing on your screen, or go to ground.news/Lindy, and there you can find details of an offer. You can get 30% off the Vantage plan, that's the all singing, all dancing one, or you can browse using the Pro plan for less than $1 a month.
Dmitry was one of these guys. He was from Kiev, American originally, but he'd lived in Ukraine many years, and he had an apartment in Kramatorsk. After the Battle of Kiev, it got quiet, so he thought, I'll go to Donbass. So, okay. We were doing nothing every day. But Dmitry was always doing these little tasks, going here and there, delivering this or that. And we were even going to the lake every day, going swimming, like there was nothing. And then Dmitry said to me one day, he says, do you want to go somewhere near Bakhmut and do some sketchy shit?
Well, with an offer like that.
The thing was, I have a guilt complex. Casey, the American, had a guilt complex because it's like, we need to be doing something.
He picked the right people.
Casey got an offer to go join an SSO unit, a Special Forces unit. That's not my background. So he had to go through a process there. He left. Dmitry says, we're going to go today to Novolugansk. And I was like, I couldn't even say it at the time. Where's that? Well, that's southeast of Bakhmut. Okay, let me look at it on a map. And then on the map, it's a rectangle. Now, on the outwards of the rectangle is red. Red means Russian. And so I was looking at this map and I said, this is a bit interesting. Interesting is a word that Ukrainians who speak English use a lot. We're going to an interesting area.
All right. May you live in interesting times, similar to that phrase.
The Chinese curse.
Yes.
You're familiar with it. It says today's going to be very interesting. My understanding of what interesting means is if people around you are dying or getting hurt, but it's not dangerous until it's you dying or getting hurt. That's so anyway, we're going to go to an interesting place. We go to this town, we drive to Bakhmut. Bakhmut's become quite a famous place. And there was war in the background, you could hear shots from artillery, things. There was still a market running in the summer. It was all half opened. You could buy a pair of shoes, you could buy a slab of meat. But once you got south of there and east of there, in these villages, just from looking at the map, it was pretty scary to me. So we're going to drive there, us, with no army units, no nothing, and we're going to go get some civilians who want to leave. And I was like, well, this sounds stupid, but this is interesting.
Okay, so this is the new mission,
Yeah.
civilian evacuation.
Yeah. So I thought for an example, we'll go to this town. We'll bring some World Food Program boxes. There was like a depot in Kramatorsk where they would give you so many food boxes, but you'd have to take pictures of giving them out, and that they would trust certain people like Dmitry to do that. And it seemed kind of counterintuitive. You're trying to get people to evacuate, but you're also bringing food to people who want to stay. We start going to these villages, and I didn't know how close the Russians were, but there was Russians in the town in civilian clothes, and the telltale way, they'd all wear boots like us, but dressed in civilian clothes, and they'd walk around and they'd look at us, and we'd look at them, and we'd come to get a woman, usually women and children. Or like a stubborn old grandmother, something like that.
Right.
And sometimes you'd show up and they don't want to leave. They called through someone, can you come get us? And then they decide they don't want to leave. very bizarre people. I didn't quite understand it at the time. But oddly enough, in this town of Novolugansk, apparently 72 Brigade, the army boys, they were ordered to pull back further. And overnight, Russia just took the whole town without a fight. But apparently the next day, there was a lot of calls asking for evacuations.
So they were in a narrow salient, surrounded on three sides by Russians.
Yeah. So
Were they even within artillery range of the enemy?
everything was in artillery. Everything's
Right.
in artillery range. Mortars run
Yeah.
at much closer ranges. Artillery is like 20, 25 kilometers back potentially. So you're always in artillery range, but that's never really a concern because that's artillery. Mortar's the one you got to be a little bit more. Yeah, because sometimes those are 2 kilometers back, 5 kilometers back. But what happened, I decided to do with my camera. I thought, well, I'll take a magazine pouch and I'll put my camera here. So when I'm driving and when we're doing all the work, there was no restrictions on what I could film, like with the army, because we're just going to help civilians. You know, what's the security risk in that? You know, purely civilian work. Well, once Novolugansk fell, the next village name was Kadema, and down the way. So we're getting further west, places that you'll never hear of. You know that. But I started filming one day, and they said, "Oh, well, can you go get 7 people in that place?" Well, we got there, and the mortars were going off, and they were going off quite close, and we got to hurry. We've got to get them. They've got a dog. They've got there's 6, 7 people, and they've got a dog the size of a horse. It's called an alibi. Are you familiar with the breed?
No.
Yeah, well, it makes a Great Dane look. It's a bit thicker than a Great Dane.
Yikes.
Yeah. We ended up having to go. We brought them to a church in Bakhmut, but we had to come back for one man and the dog. There was a lot of explosions. There was a field on fire. Like, I caught all this on camera, and I made like a little Instagram reel, like a 1-minute reel. Well, it went viral, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. It was a very bizarre war. But what happened, I would get more followers, and then more people would send me donations, because I thought maybe I can buy some more diesel generators. This was my goal at the time. Like, how can I fundraise online?
So you now have a perverse motivation to go to particularly dangerous places to get more views, which then gets more finances, and so you can then do more good, perhaps.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. Film some sketchy shit, like Dimitri put it, and then use it for generators. I thought maybe we could get 10 generators for Christmas. But the more sketchy shit we were doing, the more donations I was getting. And I thought, well, maybe I can buy things along the way. Like, I'll buy chocolate. I'll buy cigarettes, like chocolate for babushkas, grandmothers, cigarettes for dedushkas, grandfathers, you know, and you know, giving all this stuff out, giving it to soldiers, and just started filming all these things. Dimitri had to leave after a while, but this was getting very interesting. I met a fella by the name of Philip. I didn't like him, and he didn't like me, and anyway, Dimitri says, "Can you go work with Philip someday?" And he doesn't have a car, and he speaks with he was very well educated, went to a good school in England, which he did not. His father's English, his mother's Russian. Yeah, very interesting character. He grew up in Russia, but he had a British passport. Okay. And anyway, he'd lived in Ukraine for many years. He had a philosophy degree. Okay, he was very abstract and bizarre. I like Philip now. No, I don't like him. I love him. There's a difference. I don't like him at all. But I started working with him to go to all these towns, and he'd done these civilian evacuations in Lysychansk, in Severodonetsk, and he'd experienced some really horrific things. But with no military background at all, like many Ukrainians, Philip didn't know what he couldn't do. And he just did it. And against my better judgment, I was the driver, I went along with him. we went to a town, so I was filming these things. I started making little YouTube videos as well. Like one was called In Seaversk, They Eat Pigeons.
Right.
Yeah, and when the aid packages slowed down, the army was shooting with pellet guns pigeons. And they would eat them, and they'd also feed them to the locals when they didn't have enough food. So I at night time, I'd be editing these quick little videos, and then we go to work the next day. But that was so convenient because we were raising money. We were paying for like car repairs that came along the way. To, like I learned in Donbass, never take a day off when you can take days off, because either whether you're on military duty or you're doing volunteer work, your car will enforce you to take days off, because seldom a month goes by that you're not off the road for at least 3 days with repairs. We ended up going to a town called Soledar. And I've been working with Philip doing, I think, fantastic work, if I'm honest, evacuating people, bringing them to church groups. He knew all the NGOs, how this would work. And everyone was saying, you can't go to Soledar. Solidar's lost. And we went there one night with a fellow named Lindybeige. He was a geneticist. I only found out later on, and he had a little Skoda station wagon.
Right.
And Andy was on the edge of Soledar, and Philip knew him. This is all very bizarre. Like, these are not military people, certainly not commandos. Andy stayed outside the town, and Philip and I went in the pitch black, very quiet. Probably not the best time to go to Soledar your first time in the pitch black. And we found this building through the army. Again, 7 seems to be an awful common number. 7 people wanted to leave, 6 adults and 1 baby. Yeah, an infant. And we all crammed into the vehicle. I ripped out the back seats of the truck because it was more convenient. They could sit on their bags.
Yeah.
The scareder they are, the more they pack in. But with a baby crying, and you can't drive with your headlights on. It's not safe. It's called blackout driving. We got towards the edge of the town, and there was no Andrew. Andrew'd been arrested by the army. He's a British national, dual national, a Kiwi. Doesn't speak a word of Russian or Ukrainian, and he just so happened to be parking outside of an army command center in the town. Who are you? And so Philip's the Russian speaker. He stayed and tried to rescue Andrew. I said to them, and I was quite scared because the baby was crying. I said, well, Andrew's got a car. You're going to either get out of this or not. Why don't I bring these people back to Kramatorsk? I drove in the pitch black, and it's very scary. Not a shot fired all night, but what if I drive into a ditch, a cloudy night? What if I crash into another vehicle, blackout? But I found a Humvee, and they had one little red light on the back that I could just barely see. And I followed that all the way out of the town, probably, 6 kilometers or so, no faster than he did.
So you were shining no light at all?
No light at all.
Not even a hand torch?
No, and I even drove with my head out the window, so any glare on the glass, like just following that Humvee. But the responsibility of a baby, I think it was the most scary time of my... I've seen a lot of dramatic things, but just the consequences of that. So anyway, speeding up the story, Philip and I were doing great work in Soledar in the daytime, and in my Pajero, many people were willing to leave with a church group that had a sprinter that agreed to. Us alone, we were getting about 40, 50 people a day out of the town. Okay, and I started documenting it on YouTube, and there was explosions and things, and a lot of volunteers were following my Instagram. Instagram's kind of the way for all the people to connect in Ukraine, volunteers and abroad, because YouTube's outside of the comments, you can't really direct message each other and such, which I quite enjoy now, if I'm honest, at this point. But all of a sudden, all these volunteers started showing up, mostly foreign, to help in Soledar. But they didn't speak Russian, and they'd never done this work before. I'm no expert to it, but I've done more than they have. It was very awkward on the edge of town, people looking for work, but without the language level, and some of them were a bit scared. They wanted to be there, but not want to be there. We were kind of overburdened with help. I would say, with the exception of one team with a British man by the name of Swampy, who's a bit of a legend in the Ukraine volunteer circle, they were very effective in helping us bring people out of the town. Quite often we would come under the artillery fire. Like I've actually filmed it once. I just happened to be driving where one went off 100 meters in front. I was driving into it. But I figured no point in stopping, just put the pedal down and hopefully we don't get another one. Eventually, with the civilian work, you would push further and further east, and I didn't understand the logic to it, but it makes sense to do the easy work first.
Okay, yeah.
It's very dangerous work, but if you could accomplish more on the safe side, and at least if anything ever happened, look at all the work you'd accomplished before that. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. It's a difficult choice to make. The people further east may be in greater danger, but there are only so many of you, and if you get put out of action, no one gets taken out.
Yeah, that's so it's quite a predicament. I don't know if there's any logic to it, or maybe that's just the way we did it. One night we went further east than we'd ever gone before, and we were told that there was 2 people to look for, and I was quite scared because the machine gun was quite loud and close, and the rounds were going somewhat overhead. We stumbled upon a house. We never found those people, but we found some soldiers held up into it, and what the hell are you doing here? It's like, no, we're volunteers here for the civilians. And they're like, civilni? It's like, where have you been? We have 17 people in the basement of the school. The army had rounded up all the civilians in a very dangerous area, and all the old Soviet buildings, particularly the bigger one, they all have like a bunker. Like they really built for nuclear war. I must give them credit there. They did plan something. They got into our vehicle, the soldiers. You have a truck? Yes. Okay, we'll show you where to go. And they drove us up, and I remember when bullets are going close, there's a distinct crack. Like a cracking noise. Yep,
I've heard that.
Yeah, and this was the closest at that point I'd ever been. I've had machine gun from the distance, but not like this. And we run in, and we're in the basement, and oh my God, look at all these people. Let's get them out. Let's get the babushka. Well, no, we'll leave the babushka because we'll get the young ones, the kids and everything. But we couldn't get them out of Soledar. We didn't have time. Like we felt we kind of make things up as we go. Philip said, get them to the top of the hill. We used to call it the safe place, because they had a bunker, and there was a local community activist who stayed in Soledar, who helped us get people out. That felt like a relatively safe place. Do you remember the saying the reporters used to say in the war, the relative safety of Lviv? That was a catchphrase.
Oh, right.
I don't know if you remember. So we used to take the piss out of that. Well, the relative safety of West Soledar, or one of my friends coined the saying, the relative safety of a shadow, standing under a shadow. But we didn't have time, to get them to where we normally would. Philip said, just go and get them there, and come back for me and the others. And I was like, no, Philip, I might not get back. And what I meant by that, if I'm honest, I was like, I might get scared and not come back for you. If I'm completely honest. I did come back. And when I did come back, and I drove fast, and my heart is beating, it was probably about a 5 kilometer run. And there's a hard turn. It's a long road as you're going to East Soledar, and a hard turn left and around. You can keep going east, but we got to go up to the school. But this hard turn, there's a tree line, and whether I'm a couple 100 meters away from that, all of a sudden a tank comes out. And a tank comes, and he rises up over the berm and lands down, and then you see the barrel like this, and I see that iconic leather cap that the Soviet,
still using them.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, a Russian tank. And to my credit, I did not slam on the brakes. I seen where the turn was, and I sped up into the front of it instinctually, and like this, and I pulled a hard turn left, and I went up on 2 wheels, but I managed to negotiate it and to get back down, and a hard way up. I was never so scared in my life up until that point. I parked up the vehicle and I ran and I screamed, "The Russians are here! The Russians are here! They got a tank!" And everybody is like looking inside, and I described, and they came out, "No, that's Ukrainian." And I'm like, oh my God, I just about shit myself. All I seen was that leather cap, thinking Soviet from my child, everything Soviet I ever watched in my life. And to me, in my mind now, Soviet is not Ukraine. Ukraine is us. Soviet is Russian. So whatever I associated with. It didn't stop the gunfire though. So I determined the tank was Ukrainian. We got them all in. We got the babushka. We got 17 people out that night. And if I want to be honest with you, if I had a bit of an ego, I started to feel a little bit like a hero. Like in the sense, not a lot of people were willing to go that far. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Philip, he's one of the most brave and insane people, I wouldn't have gone that far. But I wouldn't let him go alone. Soledar progressed. We were possibly getting 100 people out a day now, with the help of these people called the Mozart Group, who showed up, these Americans. They've since fallen into controversy with their leader.
Is this a predominantly Russian-speaking area?
All Russian.
Right.
All Russian, Donbass.
Because whereas with previous anecdotes you said they didn't speak Ukrainian, when you were starting this one you said such and such didn't speak Russian. So how big a difference does that make to you going into a predominantly Russian-speaking area? Did you have a different feeling about the locals?
I'm no expert on the demographics, but it seems to me all Ukrainians can speak Russian, but a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of older Ukrainians can't speak Ukrainian. Okay, and regardless of how they feel about Russia or Ukraine, that's just the way it is. Some of these people were waiting for Russia. Some of these people wanted to be Ukrainian. I think more than half wanted to be Ukrainian. And this war made them pro-Ukrainian because they never thought Russia would do what they did. These are only from me asking people afterwards, because I was very curious about this subject all the time, and I would often on the drive home, I never asked for an interpretation on the spot, but on an hour drive home, this became very apparent to me, that what Russia did, they actually lost a lot of supporters. Some of them were. The biggest issue with the people that didn't want to leave, they didn't want to leave home. That's what it was. That was home.
Well, I saw one of your videos in which you were asking this lady who'd had months to leave where she was, why did you stay? Why did you stay? And her son had gone missing, and she'd stayed there in the hope that he would find his way back there.
That's the thing. One of her sons had died in the army, Ukrainian army, and the other one went for water one night and disappeared. So she had no child. She had her daughter, who married an army guy and moved west. I remember the one you're talking about. But she had no male heir to carry on. Her husband died. It's kind of an important thing. Well, it's her son. They don't want to leave because they don't know. They're not the richest people in the world. Anyone with money is gone. I'm going to get in trouble sometimes for saying this. Most of them are left of the bell curve.
Right.
Yeah. There's sometimes alcohol issues going on there as well. Yeah, it's anyone with money or education left long ago.
Right.
So many people I'd met even before going to Donbass, like they were from Donbass, but from 2014 on they moved. They left Donetsk city. They moved to Kiev. They moved to wherever. Young people with educations, they'd left. So I don't know who's pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. There's some of them that are. There's some of them that would go around in bicycles and have a phone that works when our SIM cards don't work, but the DPR or the LPR SIM cards, the Luhansk People's Republic, and they would work because of different cell towers. You had to watch out for that. If you've seen someone on phone, different times in Ukraine I've been bombed by a babushka I just gave chocolate to. Yeah. Soledar was a funny town. I think they're all funny towns, to be fair, but as we were going further east, it got more daring. It got a bit more, it's not always shooting. Sometimes it can be dead calm, and then for certain times of day, it will pick up. You know, certain time of the day before dark, after dark, then it tends to get spicy. I had quite an intense day, and Philip suggested, Dimitri was there, everyone, we're going to go to Knopf. It's like, where's Knopf? Oh, it's across the river. I was like, isn't that Russian? It's like, yeah. I was like, well, why? It's like, because there's actually a lot of people there that want to go. And it's like, well, I don't know if I want to do this. And Philip and Victor, one of the boys, they went in one car. I went in the other. And we went east. And the Ukrainians, he said that Victor had been there before. But what we must do once we get to the quarry and the dirt road and the gravel pits, Soledar's a mining town, salt mainly, we must follow Victor's tire tracks exactly, because we know there's mines. Right. The Russians have a way, either through aviation or through artillery pieces, where they can deploy spider mines, leaf mines, little ones that are designed just to take your foot off, to blow your tire, or anti-personnel mines, which can blow you in half. But if we follow these tire tracks, we're going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. Philip, you're crazy. You're a nut job, but I care about you deeply, and the work we're doing kind of cancels out the insanity sometimes. What happened, we got to a bridge, so it was only later on, my understanding, the Russians had the factory on the other side, and Ukraine had no control of that side of the water. It's really a creek, if you want to be honest. I don't even know if it's deep enough to dunk yourself in.
Right.
But at that bridge, I did see mines. I seen these big, large pucks, and I knew what those were. Those were anti-tank mines. So you're on the Ukrainian side, you've got to follow the tracks exactly, and you're in the machine gun range. But if you get down to the bridge, you're at the low point, you're in the dead ground, that the Russian machine gun can't see you. But then you've got the anti-tank mines. So it's a bit of a predicament. I heard Philip say, oh, you can just pick them up and throw them. I've seen someone do that in a video. And
yeah, and then there are the anti-tank mines that you can pick up and throw that have a grenade underneath them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these anti-tank mines were actually placed by Ukraine, okay? And they were placed where you could drive in an S pattern, a zigzag around them. But this was so nerve-wracking. Like, I can't begin to tell you. Like, I am looking. The only problem, once you get across there, they seem to go into the dead ground. They know where you are. Then you got to go up the hill a bit. But then, obviously, don't drive towards the factory. You've got to cut behind the buildings, like the long Soviet block apartments. And that's when the mortar fire comes.
Yeah.
Because they know you're there. And I drive a green vehicle, because it's an army vehicle. Just happen to be doing, assisting with civilian work. Army helps civilians all the time. We found a family there in Knopf. I couldn't drive across the road where we were supposed to go because there was a big crater, big crater. So I parked. I took a chance with the broken glass, but parked as close to the wall as I could. And what we found there, we found 3 kids, a wife, a husband, and then he said, let's get a babushka as well, the grandmother down the road. And we got them. They were crying. I let Philip do the talking, as he often does with them, and I gave the little boy my helmet. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, he knew how to say thank you. And when we're starting to cross the road where the crater is, I was come on, and probably like a 50 cal round, somebody shot right across my head, and I felt like I almost felt the breeze of it, because it's a large caliber round, and I hit the ground. When I got up again, I ran. See, they were ahead of me. They went first, these people. We got behind the building, and it's probably, I don't know, maybe it's about 7, 8 o'clock at night, but it's a summer night. There's mortars going off. Victor said, you go. Philip stays. He find more people. And I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go without him because the minefield I'm scared of. But now I got the kids in there, and I'm already scared for my own life for the mines. I'm hoping they'll rally up more people, and we can drive out, and I can drive behind them and follow them exactly. I'm scared. I'm really scared, and I'm holding this family there longer than they need to be there. Nobody can ever judge me, you know. I judged myself for a while over it. But all of a sudden the Ukrainians start advancing up the hill. They're on the side of the river now. I don't know, maybe a platoon, a company, and I'm against the wall, and I'm just like, volunteer, volunteer, same in English. And he looks at me, and he just reminds me of like a Vietnam movie. He's got the helmet with no strap, he's got the sleeves cut off, you know, and he's got a bandolier around him, and he's got a machine gun, and he's going towards the Russians. And then the other guys start coming behind him, and I'm like, and I'm behind the wall holding this family here. Victor comes back with an older woman, an older man, like maybe in their 60s. And he says, I'll drive them, you take the family, I'll take another one. We got a dog, I think. I said, all right. He says, but we have to come back for Philip. He's found more people. Philip has no fear. No fear. I've seen him scared a couple times, and justly so. We drove out, and we brought them all the way out of Soledar to Blahadatne, to the medical point, to the collection point. And right away I say, we've got to go back now because it's getting dark. It's getting close to dark. Maybe we've got a half hour left. And we floored it, and I followed Victor. It's the relative safety of before the gravel pit, because then you lose the trees, then you're in the open ground to the Russians, and you got to follow the tracks implicitly. Normally, what would you do? You would keep vehicle spacing, you know, maybe a couple 100 meters, 100 meters at least. And especially with the dust flying up on the road, because it's a dirt road, you would definitely wait for him for some of the dust to clear to follow the tracks. I didn't do that coming around the corner. I was just thinking, get over there as quick as possible. That's when my war really changed. I drove over 2 anti-personnel mines. All I remember was like a hot yellow flame. I've got it on the camera. I'll send it to you.
We'll take собачкas as well.
Собачек можем взять.
Okay. We good? Okay. Come, собачка. Oi. Now I'll get the собачка. Come.
Собачки ваши?
It's gonna be tight. Holy fuck. We're not taking the whole. Собачка? Давай, get the fucking dog.
Фу, говорю, подожди.
Okay. How about this?
What?
Women. Where's it all gonna go? Women now. Sorry, Lushka. These two. Come on, get in.
Do we want to assist them?
What can we do? No, we've got civilian.
These guys.
Fuck! Don't spit down. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I gotta get these people out. Sorry, doggy. Oi!
Wait.
What, that rocket?
Yeah, man.
I seen it. God bless those boys. You good?
Yeah.
Sunflowers as far as the eye can see. For you, love. Feel how fresh that is for your family. Huh? For all of you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Спасибо, ребята.
God bless you. Good job. We rescued babushkas. Fuck. Fuck, that's a good one. Let's go. What? Hey, soldier.
Thank you.
You budlaska. Just go, run. Давай. Yeah, you're alright. 1 more second.
Every window smashed. every component of the vehicle smashed. Even this, I'll never forget the cigarette lighter, the USB port for my phone, that shot out the pressure out the back. I don't know. Everything that could move, moved. I managed to stop that and put it in park 1 meter before an anti-tank mine. Pedal mines, leaf mines, spider mines, AP mines are Russian, but the Ukrainians are the anti-tank mines. Imagine that, driving over one of our mines. I stopped 1 meter before the anti-tank mine, and I pretty much fell out of the truck. The 93rd Brigade boys...
So the anti-personnel mines saved your life? They forced you to a stop?
No, because I don't know, because I held the wheel pretty straight, maybe. I never thought of it that way, Lindy. Interesting perspective.
Forced you to a halt before they...
1 meter. I don't know how straight I held the wheel after I went boom. But that's a possibility. Maybe. I'll run with it.
Okay.
Okay. So the Russian mine saved me from the Ukrainian mine.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. God, maybe Russia isn't so bad after all. Maybe. Okay. End of interview. Seriously. I didn't know this. It was the last Ukrainian position. They had the AT-4 or the Matador, the anti-tank weapons, and they were up in this big dugout pit, you know, in the gravel pit, because there's hills there, there's pits. They were like, what the hell? They came down and got me, and they pulled me out of there. Now, first thing I got to do, let's be honest here, I didn't have my strap on my helmet because I'm trying to be cool like a Ukrainian all the time, you know, because that's the way they are. And my helmet blew off my head. So I grabbed my helmet, but then I remember I had 10 packs of cigarettes in the glove box. I don't know why, but I thought about those right away. So my priority was my helmet, my cigarettes.
Right, I saw you in the video go back for something, but I wasn't sure what it was. So.
Yeah. It was
right.
my smokes.
Well, don't waste your tabs.
Yeah. And I have brain damage now, but directly after the trauma, I got my helmet, I got my cigarettes, and I grabbed my med pack. Right, I'm ready to roll. And I don't know how long they held me up on that hill. They pulled me out. And they couldn't do any medical evacuations that night from Soledar because the situation had changed. It was Dimitri who came back in, my friend Dimitri, who came and found me. And he went around to every army house in the dark at the risk of getting his head blown off. And he took me out to Kramatorsk. I remember in the hospital, I don't know how far they went into my head, into my ear. I'd blown my eardrum. Yeah. And they had pulled... well, I think it was glass. It could have been metal shard, but it was very red and brown, blood and bile. I went to Dnipro. They sent me to the hospital the next day to Dnipro. Before I went to Dnipro, all my National Guard buddies who weren't working came to the hospital to say goodbye to me. And then I spent 10 days in Dnipro hospital in a concussion ward. Right. Normally it's 3 days for concussions, but they're not letting me go. And I didn't know what's wrong with me, but some days I'm walking funny, some days I'm talking funny. And one day I tried to escape the hospital because I heard there was a supermarket and a pizza place about 5-minute walk away. I didn't make it to the gate and I had an accident. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that was so I wasn't well.
And that convinced even you that you weren't well?
Well, I don't think I've done that in how old was I? 35 at the time.
So 34 years.
I haven't done that sober in how many years? Anyway, moving on. They sent me to Kiev to the hospital there. Very extensive hospital, maybe 2,000 soldiers there. But all this time, because of social media, I had the video of me getting blown up. I uploaded that. I made a video out of that. National news networks around the world had used it, had contacted me. People had come visit me in the hospital, Ukrainians that didn't even know me. Had come visit me, bringing me borscht and, things like that. They wanted, on the national news in Ukraine, they wanted to do a story about me. I'm quite proud of that, because it's Ukrainian news, and not just the BBC or CNN, but I was quite proud of that. but I felt I was in trouble. I'm a hospitaller who kind of went off and did some crazy things, and just I always thought it was better to beg for forgiveness than ask for
Then ask
permission.
permission. Okay.
Yeah, because the Ukrainians were so busy. They didn't have time for all the foreigners. That's why so many of them left the country. Like, lead me, you know, what's the plan? It's like, there is no plan. It's Ukraine. We're doing the best we can. I thought I did something bad. My commander, she said to me, never mind that. Are you well? You know, we'll provide you anything you need. If you need to see any more specialists, doctors. I said, well, I'd like to go back to work. So what do you need? Well, I'd like my passwords, and I'd like a new med pack, and I'll need to go get myself armed again, but I'll need a truck. And it just so happened, when I was in the hospital, a complete stranger, he sent me $500 on PayPal. See, because as I was doing all this crazy stuff, people were donating, and I was like, wow, I think I'm going to get more than 10 generators for Christmas. He was from Colorado. He was a Ukrainian, blood, a descendant. And he said, I've always wanted to help in Ukraine, and I felt the Red Cross and everything was wrong. But maybe you're the reason. You're who I can help. My business has just started to pick up over the last year. I'd like to buy you a new truck. I was like, I beg your pardon? Yeah, that's why I sent you $500, so I get your attention. I was like, I'm listening. A complete stranger, Lindy. He flew to Germany. He met my friend Enrico, who was helping bring things from Germany.
Right.
They sorted him out with a mechanic to help buy a vehicle, and he drove it to Krakow. I was in hospital. He didn't have time to come to Kiev or anywhere. He left it in Krakow with a friend, and I've never met him. How's that?
Yes, it's wonderful. There are many people out there who want to help and can, and
Yeah. It's so I've got a responsibility to make good on this.
yeah.
I told my commander. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I definitely I want to be a hospitaller, but I would love to go on a rotation again. But the biggest problem in Donbass, I've seen how the Donbass volunteers work. She knew all about that because she's Ukrainian. They have a long history. I mean, they even a registered volunteer even has a tax exemption. They're not expected to be an NGO or anything, but it's a Ukrainian thing. We know what you're doing. We know. No, crack on with it. It's like anarchy, in the wild east. I said I want to work like a Donbass volunteer, but I want to do everything as a hospitaller to help Army Medical. The civilian evacuations are, not to be cynical, they're bringing in very good money, and it's a good thing. It's good for our battalion. But all the medical units, I'm seeing medical units that when I did rotations, we were only stuck in one area. I said I'd like to try to get supplies for them. This is what I'm doing with the generators. She says, well, what do you need from me? Well, help me bring them to the country. You have the authority and the. So she was signing all the paperwork and enabling me to get supplies from Europe to give out to other units, because Ukraine has bureaucracy still, unfortunately. But continue on doing civilian work with Philip, with Dimitri. Eventually I got a partner from hospitallers, Nika, 19-year-old paramedic, and we would travel all around the fronts, and we would follow the casualties back, the army casualties from these areas,
Right.
To their medical collection point, to the stabilization point. But doctors from Sweden or Germany were coming not only to meet me, people I didn't even know, to give me narcotics. In Kramatorsk, I'd meet them in a car park at night. Yes, Brandon, what do you need? Oh, we've got here, have of these, have 50 of those, and some of these things were in great shortage in Ukraine. We would find a medical unit, and do you need some morphine? Yes, we do. Here, why don't we have a coffee and talk? And just through doing our work, and sometimes we would take civilians there that needed to be patched up, like non-serious wounds, because we got to know these medical units. Nobody knows where all the medical stabilizations
Well, yes, you just said
are.
you were following the ambulances in order to find out where these places were.
Yeah, I was like a lawyer, an ambulance chaser.
So there are loads of these, you call them stabilization
Stabilizations.
centers. So it's like the very first aid station you get to back from the front, just to patch you together just well enough so that you can be moved to somewhere a bit.
Could be 2
bit better
kilometers, 5
equipped.
kilometers, 10 kilometers back, depending on the situation.
Right.
Nobody knows where another brigade stabilization is.
And so these stabilization centres move around a lot, presumably.
They could be in a house. They could be in a civic building of sorts. They could be. They're never in tents, because remember the drone warfare. They'll just see it and that's a good thing to blow up a tent. It's not MASH like in the movie or the TV show. They're all over the place. There's every brigade has 1 or 2.
Right.
And it's for people who can't make it to the
But
hospital.
at the national level, no one knows where they are. It's only the local people who know where they are.
The local brigades. And there's a security reason to that. Sometimes it can be very sad. I know other units who work towards Cremenat and they might drive to Le Mans to go to one, but they don't know that if they just keep going a kilometre in the wrong direction, that there's a really good stabilization. There's no centralized information in Ukraine about, obviously for security reasons for some things, but it just appeared to me that me as the foreigner for doing this work, I knew some things that some Ukrainians didn't. But by meeting these stabilization points, I started getting generators. The Germans would bring them in, and they would bring them to Dnipro or wherever. I would meet them, and then it's like, here's your generator. Because I knew from working for 1st Armoured Brigade that without power, you can't accept a defibrillator. You can't accept an ECG. You don't, because it's, what's the point? Army Medical is not corrupt. It's a very great institution. Most of the army is, actually. But they won't accept if they can't use it. If you give them power,
you're robbing someone else who does have power of a useful tool.
So all of a sudden they've got a 2 kilowatt little generator, like definitely not a Honda, nothing of that type. But all of a sudden now they can employ everything. So that kind of became my thing. I must say though, working that civilian work and working with Nika, eventually, there was times where I wouldn't take people because they were fucking around too much and we were running out of daylight. There's been times where I come back a couple of days later and that house was burnt to the ground and that person was nowhere to be seen. But with working with this 19-year-old, all the army crews were teams were so keen to help us because they were helping a girl. They hadn't talked to their sister in months, or their mother or their daughter. We were a real magic team, the two of us. I'm a foreigner with a gun pretty close to the Russians, and they ask, are you scared? I says, yeah, I'm scared. Every day I've got to do a big but I get on with my job, and they're like, we love you, thanks for being honest, But she could get down to the deep with them in the language.
Yes.
And the fact that they were so concerned for her welfare, as a woman, they're very protectorate. Surprisingly not that misogynistic or chauvinistic. I would have thought in Ukraine, the women, especially in the army, have a very high status. They would give us everything. They would help us. They would give us the maps. They would that we didn't have ourselves. There's a lack of information. They looked out for our welfare, and we did some of the best work in the war. Eventually, I got very sick. I had a stomach problem, Crohn's. It's quite a nasty disease.
Right.
And the war brought it on much worse, aggravated it. Nika and I finished work after some brilliant months' work. I went to got a diagnosis, and after a couple of weeks off, returning to Donbass, she had joined another team. And one of the Swedes that I came over with, Nico, a lovely boy, this is coming around early December. Nika and I had done everything, all the civilian evacuations at Bakhmut Hospital. They called us in when they needed extra hands. But she wanted to go full-time back on rotation as a paramedic. One night in early December, I want to say the 8th, they were evacuating someone from Soledar, and Nika was in the back, and Nico was the security in the front, and in the pitch black a tank came out of nowhere, and they hit a tank, a Ukrainian tank. It's quite common blackout driving. We don't have not everyone has night vision or can afford it. Nico was killed that night. one of the Swedes I came with, a very good boy, and young Nika was in the back, and yeah, she has to live with that. So I left again. I went back for the funeral. I've never done that before. I have the option. I can go to them. We're very lucky as a volunteer battalion. If we have extenuating circumstances, that whole team a replacement team was brought for them. That wouldn't happen in the army, but we had that option. We're quite spoiled, if I'm honest. But I went back to Donbass again. I done a lot of civilian work, and I questioned the efficacy of it. Like, for example, working with Nika, we had a woman we called Chicken Lady in East Bakhmut, and you'd go to people's houses and they weren't there, and then you'd phone them, and it's like, oh no, I left 2 days ago. Well, did you not think to tell that you were gone, like that we're actually going somewhere very dangerous to get you? No consideration, left of the bell curve. I don't care if anybody judges, 100% there. Everyone who's still there. Chicken Lady was one in particular. She asked if we could come back 2 days later because she still had a chicken left in her yard she wanted to kill and eat and enjoy. Her neighbour's house blew up about 5 houses down. So things like this were happening, or the woman, 2 soldiers were taken out by a sniper around her block in a particular area of East Bakhmut that I didn't quite like. And this is coming on to later November. And no, we got to do 2 runs because she's got to take all her clothes, she's got to take all her food, even though it's a food package coming from an aid organization from west, and we're bringing her west. We've got to bring all her pasta, and she only smoked special cigarettes. I remember, like, you know, the long whore cigarettes. I'm not saying she was a prostitute, but the long thins, the slims.
Right.
Yeah. So it was dealing with people like
But
this.
hang on, you knew that in advance? That
No. When we got there, she insisted on taking so much. It was about 40 kilos of food at least. I know, because I know what a weight feels like. It forced her to do. She would not leave, but because she's the grandmother, she can hold everyone else up. She can emotionally blackmail them. I've seen this in Donbass, and it's usually a grandmother because the matriarchal society. A lot of the men who were left were alcoholism. So the woman, it's a really rough place, the people that were left in Donbass. So I became quite bitter about that. Nika didn't want to do the work anymore. It wasn't worth it to her. She was in medical, she was beginning as a medical student before this. Why shouldn't she be with army casualties? In January, I remember the date. It was January 7th. I was doing work with Dimitri, continuing my supply things, and I got a phone call from Philip's brother. Philip's brother Ignat, he was in Kiev at the time, as was Philip, and he said, "Can you go evacuate a babushka from Soledar?" And I was pretty much done with civilian evacuations. I said, you know, like, I'm getting enough social media support. I can go back. I don't know what I'll do. I'll go back to Army Medical and join a proper rotation again. I'm given permission to do all this in hospitals, what I think is best. But I don't want to go get this babushka. And she said, well, Andrew Bagshaw and Chris Parry have gone missing. I don't know Chris Parry, but I know Andy Bagshaw really well. He was a geneticist, a scientist, kind of a nerdy guy from New Zealand. They've gone missing. Okay. Can you go get her in Soledar, and can you inquire to the whereabouts of Chris and Andy? Well, I said, I'm not going on my own. Dimitri hates civilian work. I said, will you please come with me on this, because Andy's gone missing. And he said, yeah, because he'll always help a friend. Dimitri's quote, he said to me, I'm all about helping friends. If you call me in the middle of the night, whether you need a gun, a shovel, or a lawyer, I'm coming. In that order. Dimitri speaks Russian. Because I would not go without a Russian speaker. Dimitri and I stopped at Oleg's house in Blahodatne, and he was now the mayor of Soledar, a gopnik, you know, like a chav.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because he was the only civilian left who helped the army and had a good reputation of volunteering. So he was now officially the Simic, basically the military mayor of Soledar, and his mom owned a little shop that was still running, selling cigarettes to the soldiers. Like, Russians are 2 kilometers away, but you can still go into Oleg's mom's dry goods shop. And the soldiers there told us, the 46th Brigade, they said, we showed them the location. They said, oh, you might not want to go there. We explained the situation. And they said, well, we've had a bit of an incident in Soledar yesterday. In the summertime, I got blown up about 5 kilometers east. So all the way from summer, they moved 5 kilometers very slowly. But what happened overnight, Andrew and Chris went missing on the 6th. The Russians pulled a pivot and took the north side of the final built-up area of Soledar. There's the salt mine at the bottom, featured quite prominently in the media. And they pulled a pivot and they took the whole north side. So our position, we were more or less surrounded by 2.5 sides now. We've become quite perilous. They said, we don't know about your friends. If you want to go we have one last command post. Here's where it is. Do not go beyond this road. You need to cut into here, inside the perimeter of the built up. And would you please bring them some cigarettes? And I said, well, we don't have many. No, we don't want to go ourselves. But since if you're willing to make the trip, could you bring them 3 cartons of cigarettes and bring them some coffee? Yeah, okay, we can do that. So they don't want to go for themselves. They don't want to go themselves. But if we're making the trip, yeah, we found them. We found them. It was the last command post in Soledar ever, and it was a little root cellar. The commander spoke perfect English, and it was just him down there with the drone team. And we asked about, did you see these British volunteers? What were they driving? And they took the time, like it's life and death for them there. They've had a very bad night. We got about 20 minutes quiet while we were there. It got a bit violent again. But they took the time to radio around. Did anybody see a black Land Rover Discovery? We think so. Yesterday there was one reported, but they couldn't confirm. They said, listen, we'll try, we'll keep asking, we'll radio back, but we can't commit resources to this right now. They managed to get the babushka out for us. They sent one of their armoured carriers for the woman that they were supposed to evacuate. 46th Brigade does that. A lot of Ukrainian boys, they stick their neck out for them. We left that town. I'm quite disgusted by the human nature of it. There's a signal chat group with all kinds of civilian volunteers.
Right.
They could be in Donbass, they could be in Hong Kong or Ping Pong. And a lot of people, they just chat on there. They're what you call in England, they're busy. Yeah. And I don't know what purpose. I know some of them are good people. I never comment in those chats. And I said, I wrote in there, I said, please, everybody stay out of Soledar. And then he goes, I go wherever, I do this and that. I was like, okay. Well, I know a German man who says he's going to deliver water to civilians today there. I don't think you should do that. Here's the tactical situation. And 2 British volunteers are missing, and I think they're dead. And I told them that, so maybe someone would stay at a Soledar. And please don't contact the media or anything. The Donetsk police and the army are trying to help. And anyway, that night it was on BBC. And people talking, oh, I knew them, they were the best, don't talk to the media, let the police do, because what if they're taken prisoner? What if their value goes up to Wagner? These are things I learned, you know. But over the next week, I'm in Soledar, I'm in and out, I'm in East Bakhmut, we're helping the army with evacuations. And it took them 5-6 months since I got blown up. August? Now we're in January, to move 5 kilometers. Once they took the north side over that next 5 days, they took about, from the 7th to the 13th, they took another 5 kilometers. Pretty fast. And we tried to get Oleg out, the Gopnik mayor and his mother.
Okay, this is another Oleg, different from the previous 3 Olegs you've mentioned.
Just accept Oleg and Sasha's as what they are. He wouldn't leave. His mother wouldn't leave. They sent us it's going to be very bad for you. the Russians will know what you're doing for Ukraine. And yeah, we drove through the middle of a gunfight on the 13th to try to get him out, and it was a little bit dramatic, if I'm honest. I was a little bit scared, and his mother wouldn't leave. I have half an idea of what's happened to Oleg, but I won't go into it. But Chris and Andrew were dead. Andrew Bagshaw was executed by Wagner. He was shot in the back of the head. That will be made public in a book, but they've run through the news cycle. No one's interested in them anymore. But I kept my mouth shut about my whole involvement over that with about 6-7 days. But people run to the media. People said, oh, they never should have been in Ukraine. But then when they died, oh, they're heroes. Funny how people change, you know. One British organisation named Spearhead really made a mess of themselves doing that. But I was completely done with civilian work. I was raising money I was only raising the money for the army, for generators, radios. Do you know how many tires I bought in Donbass? Like, I've had 4 tires repaired in a week once. One of my friends' record is 7. If I could find another way, if I could go back to Army Medical, I'm limited what I can film, but maybe people trust me enough. But I think my life, I think Nika's life, I think anybody who's actually has the brains to actually do this work successfully and help, that these people aren't worth my life.
So when you're there, you've risked an awful lot just to get to this babushka who supposedly wanted to be rescued. When she refuses, does it go through your head as an option, I'll just shove her in the back of the van?
There's been some people we've been violent with. I had to learn to understand that in Donbass, and I thought it was horrible. But some of these men, I've seen them before. I've seen some of the guys do it. Give them not the hardest slap in the world, but give them a slap across the face. And like, what are you doing to your family and your children? And shaming them into leaving with a bit of physical. And that can be quite effective too.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of foreigners, you know, you're horrible. Yeah, you come do it. Once you've taken your first 100, 200 out, then you 300. Philip's taken 700-800 people out. Yeah, lie to them. That the Russians will be there tonight. A breakthrough. It happens all the time.
Right. And if you've got a 19-year-old girl in the vehicle with you who's got almost all her life still ahead of her potentially,
she's not going to get raped. I've seen all that. I've seen. I didn't want to go into that, but I've seen the areas we liberated in Liman region. They are very pro-Ukrainian now. I documented all that on my YouTube, but I know I can't guarantee it'll happen to them, but I can't guarantee it won't happen. So I was done. I was by the 13th of January. What resulted over the rest of the month of January, including Soledar, 10 foreign volunteers died, and that's not including the military, the Legion guys, humanitarian workers, medical workers. 10 died, but by 13th, 14th of January, I was done.
Yep.
And then I moved back to Army Medical, and I got to be honest with you, I watched that in the background, and I know what happens. When Pete Reed died, that was February 2nd. He asked me to come work with him, or can you help me? And I said, he was a famous American volunteer, invented a new type of stabilization on sea containers in Iraq. Generator and air conditioner, because it's Iraq. Drop them wherever you want. Everyone was I hate to call them humanitarian nerds, like they've done things in Haiti, everywhere. That's their thing. Pete Reed's coming here. He's going to, wow. He was a brilliant man, but he wouldn't listen. I said, slow down. You don't understand Donbass. He did amazing things while he was there, but got himself killed in 3 weeks. You know, by a Russian rocket that was launched at his ambulance. A real sad thing. But no, I was done with civilian work.
Yeah. You've got to look at your own value, haven't you?
Yeah. And it's the first time I did. I don't need to show people videos on the internet anymore to shock them to get money for the army. I'll find another way.
Yeah. Each diesel generator you get to where it's needed could save, you don't know, but some lives.
That's why I love diesel generators over anything personally, emotionally, because once you buy a good generator, you prime it, you do it. That's the gift that keeps giving. Because unless it gets blown up, a few of them have been blown up that I've donated. and I've helped replace them in the units. That generator can run for 2 years if you oil it properly. So in my mind, it's the gift that keeps giving. I had to go through a change, but I went back from that point. I've not done any civilian work. Right up until April now, I've solely been with the army and medical evacuation.
Presumably other people are doing civilian work though.
There's not much though. There's not much because for civilian evacuation, the line has to change. I've learned that through the war. There has to be a dramatic change in the line in order for 500, 1,000 people to want to be evacuated.
Right.
And it's been a slow meat grinder, like you know how they called it the meat grinder all winter? They don't leave. So people, there's a lot of people that romanticize that work. I don't. And I was at the spearhead. There's better people than me at it, like Ignat and Philip. But it's not worth my life. For 10 people, okay. For children, okay. Not for stubborn geriatrics ever again.
Okay, well, thank you for staying alive.
Thank you.
And if you are a hero, I suppose you are Diesel Generator Delivery Man.
I've got the power. Thanks, Lindy.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Lindybeige!